Hey, what's going on YouTube? Alabama Reloader here. So in today's video, I just wanted to kind of do a walkthrough or an overview of what the reloading bench currently looks like. And we're not really going to discuss possible changes because I'm not really sure that I even want to change anything about this setup, right? This is about as clean as it's going to get, more or less, for the foreseeable future. So check it out, pretty clean compared to what it has been in the past from time to time. But I did want to touch on some of the equipment that I have, and I'm really liking my setup at this point in time, at this stage of where I am in my reloading hobby journey, or whatever you want to call this progression of time. Been reloading since roughly 2015. And during that time frame, I started off, I just want to kind of give a brief history of how I got into reloading. I have to blame my brother for it. He's the one that really got me into it, and it's one of those hobbies that hopefully you've had this experience, right? Where you've tried something new or something different, and instantly you knew, now this is the thing I want to do, right? I don't know what that is. It could be a different, you could go play pickleball, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, man, this is, I don't know why it would be, but this is the most amazing thing ever, and I just want to do this from now on. Well, that's kind of how it was for me and reloading. And I started off with a Lee Breech Lock Challenger kit. Okay, I think if I remember right, I can go back and look on Amazon. That's where I bought it from. And I want to say it was like $100. And that's the reason I bought it, because I didn't know if I would really enjoy it when I first got into it, and so I wanted to start off as cheap as possible. I think at the time, I believe I wanted to reload 223 and 9mm. That was what I wanted to do. And so I bought the kit. I bought some CFE 223. I don't even remember what pistol powder I went with. I believe it was CFE pistol. I believe both of those powders were, I think, relatively new around that time frame, but I believe that's what I use. Again, it's a long, basically 10 years ago now, looking back. So trying to remember exactly what powders I used, it's a little tough. But I started off loading on that kit, right, on that Lee Breech Lock kit, and quickly realized I don't really want to load pistol rounds on a single stage press, but bottleneck rifle stuff, that's my jam, right? I instantly kind of knew this is what I want to do from now on. And it's progressed over time and transitioned over time to where that still is the primary focus of my personal reloading, is bottleneck rifle stuff, and specifically more geared towards bolt action rifles. That's what I really, really enjoy. Not so much semi-auto stuff or anything along those lines, or even lever gun stuff, right? Like, it's strictly bolt action is what I truly love to work on. So, but as my reloading interest, right, and enthusiasm for the hobby sort of progressed and my knowledge progressed, well, first of all, I realized real quick, okay, that brass prep is the worst stuff that you could do in the reloading process, right? It's the worst step along that reloading process. And so I had to say, okay, well, what do I need to do to change that, right? And so I went from prepping brass by hand with the little, I don't even think I have anything up here. Well, just like the little primer pocket cleaner, right, that they have for large and small primer pockets. So just cleaning the primer pockets by hand, but I did all the brass prep by hand to start with. And that's where this guy came in. This might have been the first purchase I made after picking up that kit and kind of getting into reloading. This might have been, it's torn between either this or the RCBS Charge Master, one of those two. But brass prep, I switched over to this, picked this up on sale. You're not going to find it for $100, but that's what I paid for it way back when. And it's, now the first one I bought, and I've told this story before too, was I picked it up over at Cabela's, and the first one didn't work. I got home, plugged it in, motor wouldn't turn, nothing. Okay. Took it back, and it was kind of a weird, I don't know, it was a weird interaction when I took it back. It was almost like the guy didn't believe me. And I was like, dude, all I want to do is swap it for a new one. I don't even want to return it to get my money back. I just want a different one off the shelf so I can use it. Like, I didn't understand. It was very odd. It was an odd interaction with the guy that was working customer service. I don't know what the deal was with that, but ended up finally, they let me swap it. Got this one home, and this is the one I've been running ever since. So thousands upon thousands of pieces of brass have been processed on this guy. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. Even if this one were to tear up, today, right, and all of a sudden need to replace it, I would more than likely, I'm 99% sure, I'd just buy another one of these. I really like this setup on this lineman. I have no issues with it, no complaints. It works great, especially when you add in that little Lee trimmer adapter head. So you can trim your brass and do everything all in one setup. Like I said, the Charge Master, it was kind of neck and neck between those two pieces of equipment that I upgraded to next. It was this and the RCBS Charge Master for powder dispensing, because at the end of the day, I realized real fast using a powder measure, right, the Lee powder measure, and manually dropping powder charges, depending on the powder I was using, I didn't want to have to drop powder and then trickle every time. I wanted to automate that process and sort of speed up my reloading, right? And so that's really where this piece of equipment was critical, along with the RCBS Charge Master. And that thing ran, and I had really good luck with it, no issues. Ended up getting rid of it, and I switched over to the Charge Master Lite. So just a smaller footprint version, and that actually lives in the house. That's why you're not going to see it out here on the reloading bench anywhere, because this the building that my detached building that I do all of my reloading in is not climate controlled, right? So right now it's 28 degrees outside, and so it's 28 degrees in here, super cold. But that's the main reason why I do all my powder dispensing in the house. So those two pieces of equipment were massively critical in me continuing to enjoy the hobby, right? Because I think that's part of it too, is if you go into this thing, so it's a double-edged sword on the advice that I've given in the past, where it's like, hey, start off as cheap as possible. That way, you don't even know if you're going to like doing this, right? So you want to start off as cheap as possible. But then the flip side of that is, when you go that route and everything is so manual, in terms of doing your brass prep by hand, and then maybe doing the powder measure and trickling up powder, or whatever the case may be, but doing things in more of a manual approach is, maybe that turns you off to the possibility of continuing to do this, right? Whereas if you had something like this piece of equipment and you didn't have to sit there and tear up your hands doing brass prep, then maybe you would enjoy it way more and dive deeper into the hobby, right? So it kind of is a double-edged sword there, going on the, hey, start off as cheap as possible mentality, right? And then you can progress over time. But that's exactly what I did. Those two pieces of equipment were massively important and critical in me continuing down this path and really, really falling in love with reloading and the hobby of reloading. The press that I run and probably will never get rid of, and this will stay on my bench in some capacity, is this Mech Marksman. This is a fairly new addition to the reloading bench, new-ish. This is probably the newest, actually, in terms of how long I've had everything else. This is probably the newest addition to the bench, and of course you guys have seen this for quite a while now. But this is a great press, single-stage press, no complaints about it whatsoever. I've made really, really good ammunition on this press. I've used other presses in the past. The Lee, like I said, the Lee breech lock press. I gotta drink some coffee. Give me 2 seconds. Mostly because it's cold. I don't want my coffee to get cold. I'll drink cold coffee, but I'd rather drink it hot. So We could probably start that debate down in the community tab of my channel. I'll do a poll. Do you drink iced coffee or hot coffee? And that really tells me a lot about you as a person. So I just gotta be honest with you. That just tells me a lot. It tells me everything I need to know, right? If I'm standing in line at a coffee shop and I'm just getting a black cup, because I do this a lot when I travel. Okay, I'm in the airport. Just give me a black cup of coffee. That's all I want. Iced or hot is the question that comes after that. And I'm like, what do you? Hot coffee. Just give me hot coffee. That's coffee. I don't know. So let's get back to the reloading subject. So I started off with that Lee breech lock press, okay? And it did good for a little while. I actually reached a point where, so I went down this path, this rabbit hole. I feel like a lot of people do this when they get into reloading, right? You start to do the offshoots of the different rabbit holes that you can go down in reloading. You know, the concentricity rabbit hole, right? The neck tension rabbit hole, the shoulder bump rabbit hole, right? The full length resize versus neck size rabbit hole. This, that, and the other, right? You can get, there's so many different things that you can try to tackle, so many different variables that you can go down. Well, mine was kind of the concentricity kick, right? I got on that. I bought the Hornady concentricity gauge, a little tool that you use. You put the ammunition in, you spin it, and you check the run out, bullet run out. Well, I did that, and it just kind of so happened to coincide with I'd started to see some issues in my reloads, where loads that have performed really well in the past, they just weren't. I was kind of scratching my head trying to figure this out. Well, come to find out, something was going on with that Lee press where it was inducing massive amounts of bullet run out. I'm talking upwards of 20 thou bullet run out, right? When you see people testing concentricity, I mean, they're down to half thou, 1 thou. They'll tell you 1 thou total run out, right? I was upwards of 15 to 20. And it was sporadic and weird and random. And so I kind of tracked it back to the press and the ram of the press giving me issues. And so I ended up, I was like, you know what? All right, fine. We're going to go, because I already knew I loved to reload. So I was like, I'm going to go from the cheapest possible solution. I know that works, but I ran into issues. Now let me go the opposite direction, right? So at the time, when I upgraded my press, the Redding Big Boss 2 single stage press was one of the best single stage presses you could buy. So I ended up picking that up, and I did an unboxing video on that here on the channel. You go back in time and look at that. That's actually one of my favorite videos of all time, because my daughter helped me with that video, and it's just funny. It's just funny. It's a really good representation of my channel as a whole. Okay, so you can go back and find that one. That's back, I don't know, that's probably 2018, I think. When that happened, because I started making YouTube videos or content for YouTube in 2018. And I'm pretty sure that's when I picked up that press. So you guys can go find it. It's pretty funny. Let's see. So from there, that kind of, once I made that transition to where it's like, okay, I acknowledge that it's great to have a starting place, but it's also good to buy really high quality equipment. It can make a difference. It can make a huge difference. So from there, I really like that press. I ended up picking up a Redding T7 turret press. I didn't need it. I just bought an entire reloading setup off of a guy that was getting out of it completely, and that was the press that he used. So I ran that, and you guys have seen these other presses on the channel. Ran that press for a long time, no issues with it. I actually got in the Frankfurt Arsenal M press, so that coax press that they made, kind of like the Forester knockoff, if you want to look at it that way, kind of like the Wish version of the Forester, or the Temu version, or the Sheen version, or whatever Chinese website garbage selling thing is the latest and greatest. Temu, I think, is the one now. It was kind of like that version of the Forester coax, so way cheaper than the Forester. And it worked okay. I did some tests here on the channel, did some videos with that press. I actually did some concentricity comparisons between that press, the Redding Big Boss 2, and the Redding T7 turret press. Small sample size, but still I think it was worth noting the results of those tests, of that test. And so yeah, I've kind of had different presses over time, and I've just settled on this one as being so far my favorite that I've used. The Big Boss 2, Redding Big Boss 2, they're neck and neck. If you're looking for a single stage press, it would either be this one or the Redding Big Boss 2. Those would be my two that I would recommend. So that's kind of the main, those are the main critical pieces: my press, my case prep station, and my powder dispensing. Those are the critical pieces of equipment that have just made such a difference for me throughout my reloading journey, right? Something that was somewhat newly added is the wet tumbling, right? Because again, I didn't clean brass for years, right? This is a fairly new step that I've added into my process, is doing the wet tumble. I have no complaints. I think it works great, no issues with it whatsoever. It's just something that I've added into the process, and I haven't really noticed any negative difference or any negative impacts like I thought I would. I kind of avoided cleaning because I was like, oh my goodness, it's another step. And I was making really good ammunition with dirty brass. I was like, I don't see the point in cleaning. And Eric Cortina kind of follows in that thought process, right? You can go hear him talk about cleaning brass. He's like, no, it's pointless. If you're worried about, making your resizing die dirty and causing an issue there, then just buy another resizing die. It's cheaper to do that than to invest all that time and money in cleaning your brass every time you shoot, right? Which there is some truth to that, because I've done it the way where I don't clean the brass. And I didn't see any degradation, right? So, but I've added to it, and mostly that's because I do work up like hunting loads and stuff for friends and family, and it's more of an aesthetic thing at this point, where I would like to, whenever I'm done with the load development process, I want to turn over nice, clean looking brass and completely loaded rounds to them. I want to give them a box of that and be like, here you go. It's more of an aesthetic thing, right, than actual performing a function that is quantifiable, that I can point to and say, this is the reason why you should clean your brass every single time, because I can't point to anything that would convince you to do it, right? So those are kind of the main critical pieces of equipment here on the bench that probably won't change. I feel like the reloading industry as a whole, we've kind of reached that point where, beyond something like the Mech, beyond the Redding, those type of brands, beyond that, really your next step up in terms of a press would have to be something along the lines of like the Area 419 Zero Press, or however you pronounce their name. But the Zero Press, right? You're talking about going from a press that costs a couple $100, like 250, whatever, 250 bucks. Now you're stepping up to a press that's $1,200. But I feel like in the reloading space, that's kind of where we're at. And you see it, especially with a lot of the stuff those guys come out with, right? Their precision scope rings and mounting solutions, right? I mean, you're talking hundreds of dollars for that type of stuff. And the die sets that they're coming out with, the reloading products that they're coming out with, massively expensive over an alternative solution. But yet what you're paying for is that sort of that highest level of degree of precision, right? That's what you're paying for now. So we're kind of at a point where in the reloading space, I feel like we are at that point where I don't know what would be next, right? I mean, where do you go from there? Yeah, I have no clue. My equipment is to the point and to the stage where I just don't see the need to upgrade anything that I have. Even my powder dispenser, right? It's plus or minus a tenth. You could argue that hey, the next logical upgrade would be something like the FX 120i setup, right? With the auto trickler and all this other stuff. Well, again, you're talking multiples of of hundreds of dollars more to get that level of precision, right? In a powder measure, in a powder dispenser. I just don't think it's worth it for me right now at this point. So I think my equipment is basically set. This is what we're running with again for 2025. Again, I just don't see any upgrades that would take place in my mind. Everything's subject to change, right? With the way the wind blows, it's all subject to change. But that's kind of the state of the reloading bench. This is how we ended 2024. This is how we're coming into 2025. This is just sort of the setup that I will be using for the foreseeable future. I don't see any need to change or upgrade or update or alter the equipment. Like I said, I really like this case prep station. If it quits working today, I'll go buy another one, which those things are way more expensive than what they used to be. But I'll just go pick up another one. So press is really good. The Chargemaster Lite works really well. No complaints about any of it. So if you're looking for equipment recommendations or you're looking to get into reloading, again, it is a double-edged sword where I talk about go as cheap as possible, but then you get into it and you really enjoy it and you're like, well, now I need to upgrade everything, right? So if you are at that stage where you're looking to upgrade some of your equipment, these are the pieces that, I could recommend, like for wet tumbling, the Frankfurt Arsenal wet tumbler. No issues with that whatsoever, works great. Brass prep, it would definitely be this Lyman Case Prep Express. That's my number one recommendation on case prep stations. And then for a press, like I said, the Redding Big Boss 2 would be good. This Mech Marksman has worked great. My brother has this press as well. No complaints out of him with it either. Chargemaster Lite works really well. It's a smaller footprint powder dispenser versus the Chargemaster, the 1500, the kind of like the original or more traditional version. But yeah, that's where we're going to leave it. That's just kind of a long-winded overview of what's on the bench, the state of the reloading bench, kind of like the state of the union here for a reloader. I feel like that's what this is, the state of the union of the reloading community. So that's it. That's where we're going to leave it. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Don't forget, if you're ever coming through Huntsville, Alabama, right? You're looking for a place to stop in and shop. You got to check out Mr. Big Guns over in Huntsville, Alabama. Shout out to Matt and those guys. They do an amazing job. That's my number one recommendation for a local store. Midway Pistol and Ammo out in Gurley, Alabama. That's another great place to hit up. If you're looking for places, online, you're talking about AmericanReloading.com. Duck Creek Sporting Goods out there. I believe it's in Colorado. Denny, he runs a great store out there at Duck Creek Sporting Goods. So a lot of good places to get reloading / firearm related stuff that you're needing. So definitely hit all those places up. But hope you had a wonderful 2024 rolling into 2025. Looking forward to this year and what it's going to bring. So pretty excited. Got a couple of things in the background that I'm running. If you've made it this long into the video, God bless you. There's a couple of potentially big things that are coming down the pipe in 2025 for me as it relates to reloading. So hope you guys have enjoyed it. We'll catch you next time. Y'all have a good one.